GM guys, and welcome to another episode of Q&A here on Coin Bureau Clips. As you can tell, it's just me, myself, and I here today. Guy and Jessica are working on a very important video for the main channel, which will hopefully be with you guys in a few days. So I've decided to jump into the breach and fly solo here with you guys today. So hopefully I can make it worth your while. Now, as you know, the MO with Q&A is that halfway through the week, we ask you to submit your questions on Instagram, our Instagram, which we've linked to below. And at the end of the week, we obviously go through all these questions and try and answer as many of them as possible. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive into the first question. And this is from Madigwelby, and he's jumping straight into the X's, the multiple X's, and he's asking, are 20x and 30x still possible, or is it too late already? Any advice to make it possible? Well, mate, I'll tell you, in crypto, anything is possible. Yeah, man, even 100x is possible. I think that the question you need to be asking yourself is, what kind of risks are you willing to take in order to get those returns, right? Because crypto is like investing and is like life in general. You know, it's risk versus reward. So yeah, it's definitely possible. And if you're willing to extend out the crypto risk curve and take more risk, then yeah, you can get 20 to 30 to 100x's. So how does one make that possible? Well, there's a few things you need to focus on. I think that one and most important factor is, of course, market cap. So it's a lot easier to push a coin with a, say, $50 million market cap by 20 to 30x than it is a coin with, a billion or so. So that's one of the first and most important factors to look into. You need to be at least below the first 100 in terms of coin market cap rankings to try and find those coins that could get those kind of returns, potentially even below the first 200, right? So that's the first and most important thing, market cap. You need to focus on that. Then thinking about more in a macro perspective of the crypto itself, you need to think about the narrative within. Doesn't matter how good the project is, doesn't matter how good the tech and the fundamentals are, doesn't matter how all-star the team are. If it's not in an exciting new narrative, the one that's going to propel the cryptocurrency, then it's not likely to get that much traction initially or in the next cycle. So you need to think about what are the important and exciting narratives for the coming cycle. We've covered a lot of these, right? We've got a video on this, and we've talked about it in numerous Q&As. But some of the examples are, GameFi, RWAs, parallelized EVMs, Deepen. Another one is Deepen, decentralized physical networks. We've actually got a video coming out on the main channel this weekend that covers a report that dives into the entire Deepen sector and some of the most exciting Deepen plays. Then there's also, of course, the alt layer one narrative. So you see some of these exciting layer ones that have rushed, post Solana rally last year. Everyone's looking into what's the next hot L1. And then another one, which I mentioned about last week, was Eigenlayer and restaking. Now that's going to be a super hot narrative this year. And you already see that a lot of the excitement and optimism around this narrative has started to form on social media, etc. So that's another narrative to look into. And so those are the narratives you need to be looking into if you want to see projects or find projects and have the potential for those gains in the next cycle. And not just that, but if you think about L1 space, so if you want to look deeper into the L1s that have done very well. So for instance, about 2 to 3 months ago, there's no coincidence that some of the hottest meme coins, for instance, were on Solana, because everyone knows the narrative of meme coins, doggy themed meme coins on Ethereum, etc. And the moment that Bonk was released on Solana, it had massive gains. And that's where, because people are moving to the next L1s, the next exciting L1s, and what are the new projects and dApps launching on these exciting L1s. So those are some of the most important things from a macro perspective of the project and the narrative. And then, of course, you can dive deeper into the project. So there are specific factors around the project itself that lends itself well to for more gains. This includes stuff like, potentially the backers in terms of who are the investors. Obviously, if they've got bigger name investors there with more funding, then they're more likely to get exposure, as well as those favored cryptocurrency tier 1 exchange listings. Obviously, the more liquidity. The moment it hits a new listing, projects usually get great returns from those listings. So That's important to look at. Obviously, also the team is important. If they build an exciting project, the team with a great background is important. But then also I think one of the most important factors in terms of the community aspect is, of course, has it got a strong and engaged community? Has it engaged with any sort of parties around? I know that's, I don't know if I'm necessarily a fan of it, but like KOLs that are working with them to partner it, to create awareness, to create user adoption, because that's something that will obviously drive excitement for the project in the social sphere. So these are all factors you can look into to potentially find those 20 to 30 to 100x's. And yes, you can still find them in this cycle, but you have to also understand that it is risk versus reward. Yes, Bitcoin is, you're not going to get 20 to 30x on Bitcoin, but you're pretty certain not to lose all your money. Whereas in some of these other newer coins that you are being speculative, trying to find those diamonds in the rough, it's also potentially you could find a stone. So, take that into account when you're trying to find your 20 to 30x's. But yeah, good question. On to the next one. And this is from Daniela Feltree. And he or she is asking, do you think this cycle will have the usual crash after the pump, or will it be avoided by the ETF investors? Yeah, that is interesting, right? Because as you've seen more recently after the ETF launch, it has been a bit of a retracement in the price of Bitcoin. And I think that many of us were expecting a little bit of a sell the news event. It's not just because of sell the news, but because many people were taking long positions in anticipation of the ETFs, including in the futures market and in the spot market. And post-ETF approval, there has been a lot of selling in the spot. I think data pointed to a lot of selling in the spot market from on the exchanges, on OKX and Binance Exchange. They could see flows going there and some of the selling pressure. Also, those investors who had bought futures exposure through the CME, there was profit taken. There was a lot of futures open interest that had opened up prior to the launch of the ETFs. So this all happened. And the moment that the actual event occurred, obviously the people who were placed in that trade were trying to take their profits, right? And they sold out of their positions. There's also been some minor selling going on. So post the ETF approval, there has been a retracement in price, right? But the question more intently is, what is the flows going to be like post this ETF approval, right? So, and all of the analysis we have seen prior to the release of these ETFs was based on flows that would come over an extended period of time, right? Because as I mentioned last week, it will take some time for the investors that everyone was expecting to enter the market to adjust to the new paradigm with these Bitcoin ETFs. If you're a large institution, it's going through investment committees, working to reallocate your positions and get ready for the potential allocation towards Bitcoin in your portfolio. If it's on the retail side, you may not have been following the news on the ETF front as much as us in crypto have. So it will take some time for you to actually readjust your portfolios, your six-month year meeting with your financial advisor, and they can alert you to the Bitcoin ETFs. So, in terms of estimates, right, prior to this for flows, there's been many reports that have come over the past few months, but more recently, Standard Chartered estimated that the ETF inflows would be about 1 billion within the first 3 months and 50 to 100 billion within the first year. So that's a lot of inflows. And just in a week, we've had $11 billion of ETF volume. And we've also seen the Blackrock ETF fund get over $1 billion in AUM. So there's excitement around these ETF products. And yes, right now, the price is a bit down because of those factors I just mentioned. But you need to look at it in terms of how things are going to progress over the next few months and as these flows start coming in. And I will also point out that obviously the next hot new narrative to focus on for Bitcoin is the halving, right? And whether the actual change in supply is consequential enough to impact on the price right after the halving, it is a narrative many people are focused on because it usually is a harbinger of an extended bull run, right? And now you're going to have this ETF narrative that's going to be playing out, this ETF options for investors to get exposure to Bitcoin, a broader swath of investors to get exposure to Bitcoin when this new and exciting narrative of the halving is coming around. So the short answer, TLDR answer of that question is that, yeah, we are going to see that I think the ETF flows, in terms of inflows from investors, is going to counteract a lot of the selling in the extended period for the next 6 months to a year that one would usually expect after an event as big and formative as the ETF launch.
Sorry to interrupt you folks, but I have to let you know about the Coin Bureau deals page. Now, my team and I have been able to pull together some of the best promos and discounts in the crypto space. We're talking thousands of dollars in bonus airdrops, amazing deals at top exchanges, reduced prices on hardware wallets, and much, much more besides. So just go to coinbureau.com/deals, also linked to below, and find the promo suited to you. Enjoy the rest of the video.
Next question, and this is from 3K Cinema, and they ask, what do you think about the new Tangem Wallet, Swiss-based, tangem.com? Yeah, that's actually really quite a coincidence, because we may even be live now, have a complete Tangem Wallet review on coinbureau.com, and this was done by our main man editor on the front there, Taylor McCracken. I actually called him up and spoke to him about the Tangem Wallet prior to this, just to get his whole opinion on it, because he obviously did the review, and he had a lot of glow and praise for it. And I will also let you know that we actually are giving away Tangem Wallets to Coin Bureau Club subscribers. Every month we do a Tangem Wallet giveaway. Me personally, I don't use a Tangem Wallet. I haven't. I prefer a Trezor. But nevertheless, I hear it's a really good wallet. And just to give you a TLDR on it, obviously, it's a hardware wallet like a Trezor and a Ledger. It keeps your private keys completely cold stored, except instead of a device, they use a card, right? A card with a secure element within it. And instead of a seed phrase, that one seed phrase that you can use to regenerate your wallet, you can order more than one card. Usually, I think the best protocol is 3 different cards. And these 3 different cards, you generate your private key with the card, and you then put this and it acts as a backup in case you lose one of the cards. You use NFT technology, you tap your card on your phone in order to sign the transactions. Now, it's apparently, in terms of the benefit of this wallet over others, for one, it's a lot more user-friendly and a lot easier to set up for newbies and beginners compared to the likes of a Trezor or a Ledger. It's also, the cards itself are completely indestructible. There's a 25-year warranty on it. It's got a secure chip that is IP68 rated. And of course, it's also that, although the app though is open source, I will say that the firmware isn't. However, it has been audited by security firms. So, and it's got this 25-year product warranty. So for all that respect, it's also slightly cheaper than the Trezor and Ledger. I think it comes in at $54, whereas the Trezor is like $79, and the Ledger Nano S is like $81. So it's a slightly cheaper, more user-friendly wallet. It's still as secure as them. I think that obviously the question does come down to, okay, in terms of one thing I did think that's the disadvantage is that you can only set up one or generate one address, which is okay if you only want to send, if you're only going to use one address for housekeeping, but I prefer to have multiple addresses, just better from an OPSEC perspective, and it's easier just from an administrative perspective to label these things. But yeah, it's a good wallet. I would encourage you to read the review. We will link to it below. And yeah, if you are a Coin Bureau Club subscriber, you could be a lucky winner at the end of this month for this Tangem device. So yeah, keep your eyes out for that. Okay, cool. On to the next question. And this is from Decentrian. And they ask, can Sol Mobile become something revolutionary for crypto, or it's just a gimmick? Yeah, the Solana Saga phone. They're selling for at least $5,000 on eBay now. And it's crazy because literally just a month ago, there was reports that people are considering the future of the Saga phone. Solana's considering the future of the Saga phone. And here it's literally like the hottest phone on the market for crypto right now. And the biggest factor there, of course, is airdrops, man. Airdrops, baby. Bonk airdrops falling onto that have driven excitement and demand for that phone. And everyone just wanted to pick it up. And now there's also the question around, could there be potential airdrops? And it's been such a smash and success after the disclosure of those airdrops that they're also going to be releasing a new Saga to next year or later this year. So it's pretty crazy how things can change so quickly in crypto. What I will say, though, is the question is more particularly if it can be something revolutionary for crypto. And I think that it has to have more than just airdrops because it reminds me of those times, the play-to-earn games, right? So these games that people would only ever play because they could get earnings like Axie Infinity, right? Whereas if you'd given the option to actually play the game, you'd be like, what the hell is this? There's no ways. It's so boring. It's so laborious. So this is a similar thing. I think that the Saga phones have to have a lot more going for them in terms of benefits to integrate with crypto apps, dApps, in terms of benefits for developers, and also be a good phone that people will actually want to use. So it has to have those features and functionality for there to be sustained demand for the phone beyond just the airdrops. Because like I say, I think that, remember that bear market's come around and not everyone's going to want to just invest in a phone that's not an user phone if the airdrops aren't that valuable or perceived to be valuable. So I think it has the potential. It just depends on what they build into the phones and what the new Saga 2 looks like. And I personally haven't used the original Saga, so I can't speak to it. But I can only go off what the reviews are online, and they're not too amazing. But I think that hopefully they can take some of that feedback and integrate and build onto it with Saga 2. Good question. So the next one is from Ace Kitty Hawk. She asks a really tough question, I must admit. If you had to take off a month away from all crypto this year, when would you do it? Well, let me tell you, I think that the chances of me being able to take off one whole month from crypto entirely is nearly impossible. I'm sorry. It's like I would have to be stranded on a desert island for a month with no internet access and no ability to create smoke signals to check the price of Bitcoin before that would happen. But if I was to be in a plane crash, then landed up on a desert island for 1 month, I would prefer if that plane crash happened potentially in June, right? Because June, obviously, that's just post the halving and things will have calmed down by then. Also, it's summer in Dubai, and if you live in Dubai, summer is pretty hot, so it's when most expats tend to take their holidays. And I also think that there's 1 or 2 Coin Bureau team members that are taking their breaks that time, so it would be pretty convenient. But the chances of it being voluntary or the 1 month hiatus of it being voluntary are pretty slim. But you never know. I could be in a plane crash and land up on a desert island, and maybe it gives me new perspective on life. But if it was to happen, preferably in June. On to the next question, and it is from the Dries. And he asks, how hard is it to move to Dubai? I guess there's many factors to question when you move into a new country, right? I guess from the most important, I've personally lived in numerous different countries. I've lived in the UK, I've lived in Canada, and I'm here in Dubai. So the question, I assume, you have to ask many questions before you consider moving to a new country. And I think that, first and most importantly, if you move into Dubai, and the question most people have got on their minds is immigration, visas, etc. So one thing I will say from my experience is Dubai is probably one of the most efficient places to be able to do that, right? There are numerous different visa options for a wide range of people and professions and income levels and skill sets. On the one hand, you can do like simple work visas, right, where you can get employed by a company, and the work visas can usually be gotten very easily. You can start your own company and sponsor your own visa. You can be a freelancer who can obtain a freelance license and then sponsor yourself if you work remotely. Or if you work remotely and you're thinking of potentially coming to Dubai, moving to Dubai, and you work for a foreign company, they've also launched a remote worker visa, right? And what this allows you to do is still be employed by your current employer, and you can come to Dubai for a year, live here for a year, subject to meeting certain income requirements, and just experience Dubai and see what it's like and still work for your employer remotely. So that's one of the options. On the top tier of the options, you've got like a golden visa, which if you have like 2 million dirhams, which is about 500, 600K of USD, you can buy an apartment and you can get a golden visa, which is good for 10 years. And you don't need to remain here the whole time. You can check in and check out. So On the visa immigration side, Dubai is super simple, super easy compared to everything else I've seen, and it's very efficient. It's a very efficient system, which is something to be said for government systems if you've dealt with this in any other countries. In terms of other stuff moving to Dubai, I mean, you need to consider obviously property prices here, and rental has gone up a lot, obviously. That's just because of the nature of everyone wants to move to Dubai. So I would consider that more a good sign, right? If everyone wants to be here and prices are going up astronomically, well, that's just a sign that there is demand to live here. For many of the other benefits, right, in terms of its location, its ease of travel, ease of doing business, and there is zero crime. So, if you value personal safety, especially for many of us in the crypto space, Dubai is a great place to be. And there's a reason why so many crypto companies are moving here, setting up their headquarters here. And it's creating this really cool ecosystem as well, where you're with so many other like-minded people in a place like Dubai. So yeah, I mean, it's a really easy move. I think that the other questions you may want to ask yourself if you're considering moving from another country in the West is, if you are becoming a tax resident here, there are certain countries that require you to pay certain extra taxes. I'm not going to go through them right now. Of course, if you're a US citizen, you still have to pay Uncle Sam because of your passport. But yeah, I mean, Dubai is a really simple move. There are many companies and people out there who can help you with the move. In fact, if you guys want to see more content about Dubai, what life is like in Dubai, how easy it is to move to Dubai, we can easily do that. Let us know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. We can share our experience, both from the personal and business perspectives. And we can also refer you to people who can help you with the move if that's something you want to do. So yeah, can't recommend Dubai enough. Okay, the next question is from Augustin Hosera, and he asks, is BlackRock big enough to fork Bitcoin network and change the ETF narrative? Yeah, that's an interesting one. Can Larry and his mates over there at the Temple BlackRock, take over the Bitcoin network and fork it? And I've seen some concerns around this, right? Concerns around centralization, concerns around what BlackRock's intentions are, concerns around what they can do, especially when it comes to the concentration of miners, Bitcoin miners, public Bitcoin mining companies that the shares of which they hold. And also the fact that BlackRock has a background pushing this ESG narrative. So I think that let's just go through a few important points. Anyone can really fork the Bitcoin network in the sense that you can easily just copy the code and start your own network. I guess the question is who's going to support it, right? And that's important because you need to have miners that are going to want to support a new fork, right? And it's something that BlackRock you're going to have to ask yourself how they're going to convince the miners necessarily. Can they convince the miners to want to support a new network, a new chain? It's a bit difficult to make that stretch and that assumption. And I think that also what you need to consider is that it's not just the miners per se that can determine what will be the right network to validate and to secure. It's also got to think about more the broader Bitcoin community, from the infrastructure providers like the exchanges to developers who actually build the code and develop the code for Bitcoin and maintain it. And it's not as if this is without precedence in terms of, like, back in 2017, obviously, there was the big Bitcoin debate, and the big seminal moment in Bitcoin's history was the forking of Bitcoin Cash, right? And at that time, this was actually a big concern. It's like there were strong backers, more particularly like Bitmain, the manufacturer of most of the ASIC chips. Like, there were a lot of people who supported the Bitcoin Cash fork and were saying that they were going to support the Bitcoin Cash. And even up till a few months prior to it, there were a lot of miners who had signaled in, okay, we may support Bitcoin, the Bitcoin fork. I think that what eventually happened was, and also you had exchanges, they were signaling who they were going, what chain they were going to view as the correct chain. Some of them said we will view whichever one has the most hash power. Some of them like Kraken, for instance, took a more principled stance and said, no, this Bitcoin Core will be the only chain. And the exchanges, developers, node operators, or the entire Bitcoin network itself will determine, what is the correct chain. And in that case, they chose Bitcoin Core as it is today. It's actually a very fascinating story. And we actually did a video on this where we covered a book called The Block Size Wars, or Block Wars. which I'll link to the video below as well as the book. But it's a really fascinating story, and I encourage you guys to read it to know exactly what went down, because it was a very formative time in Bitcoin's history. So yeah, I think that circling back to the question around BlackRock, and with knowledge of what happened then, I think that the chances of BlackRock being able to take over the Bitcoin network and fork it and create a new forker that's their own vision of the Bitcoin ideal, ESG friendly, etc., I think that's very slim. But yeah, so you can sleep easy, Augustin. Now onto the next question, and this is from Nikolay Petrov 17, and he asks, can a BTC ETF be halted for trading? BTC spot will continue to move. Yeah, I mean, for sure. So 100% in a spot, I mean, an ETF can be halted for trading, because these shares, they're just shares within the ETF fund. They're listed on an exchange, and the exchange can just hold them. An exchange can hold any one name stock or share on its exchange. And yes, Bitcoin spot will continue to move. And in fact, obviously, the ETF trades within market hours, and Bitcoin trades 24/7, 365. Look, I mean, this is not new in the sense that there are many ETFs out there where the shares of the underlying shares of the ETF trade at different hours to the underlying asset itself. I mean, for one, commodity funds, gold, oil, even share funds, foreign equity funds that have equities of foreign companies, where the exchanges in Japan, for instance, will trade the underlying, and the ETF has shares issued in the US. And this is not a massive problem, because at the end of the day, there's a few factors here. One is that you got to think about it from the principle of the concept of no arbitrage, right? In the sense that prices usually reflect the underlying price, because if they aren't, then market participants will jump in to close any sort of arbitrage gap, right? So that's why ETFs usually should trade close to the price of the underlying. And if there is a situation at which prices moved when the ETF wasn't trading and the shares weren't trading, it will adjust almost immediately on the market open in jumps, right? And I mean, this is something that you'll see not just in ETFs, but in shares, for instance. Think about it. If there's news that breaks over the weekend about a stock, and then the market's open on Monday, you're going to see massive movements. And you'll see this prior to the markets opening in the pre-market trading or futures. And also, if there is any sort of massive deviations from fair value at any point with an ETF and the underlying, the authorized participants, which are market makers in the market, they will go out and adjust redemption and the redemption or issuance of the ETF shares, as well as adjust the value of the underlying in order to make sure that they're in line. So it's not too much of a problem, in the sense that it's either the market that's going to adjust to via no arbitrage pricing, or it's the market, but the authorized participants that will adjust via issuance or redemption of the ETF shares themselves. So generally it moves very quickly, and that's why you're able to have collective investment vehicles or other structured products that adjust very quickly with the underlying shares, because market participants will close any gaps. So it shouldn't create too many issues. And as we've seen for the Bitcoin ETFs over the past week of trading, there hasn't been too many issues on that front. Okay, the next question is from Jazz Scott, and he asks, what's your thoughts around airdrops as a whole, and do they expose people to scams? Yeah, this is a very good question, because it's sometimes so annoying to see and unfortunate to see people fall in for so many of these airdrop scams, because they're all over the show. And I think that's just part of partly because airdrops are usually associated with free money, right? And people, especially I've seen so many airdrop scams on Twitter. And usually these airdrops they're scam airdrops, right? So it's important to be very clear. There's a difference between scam airdrops and legit airdrops. So a scam airdrop is obviously, people will say they'll advertise there's some sort of a hot airdrop coming around, especially around a particular coin people are thinking about could potentially be doing an airdrop. So they kind of know that you're anticipating an airdrop, so they'll scam you on that. And what it really is a scam. They'll send you to a wallet drainer, and they'll make you approve the connection to your wallet, and it will drain your funds. And there have been so many people who have fallen for this. So in that respect, it does expose people to scams, the concept of airdrops, and that's unfortunate. But then again, airdrops themselves as a mechanism for rewarding early participants within a cryptocurrency network, for people who are providing liquidity, for people who are developing on a project, they're an important mechanism because it creates a community incentive for people to interact with the project. And some of these airdrops that we've had over the past year have been so incredibly valuable. Think about Arbitrum, Celestia, OP. So many of them over the past year or so have created a lot of value for people. Pith. So I think that it would be silly to say, oh, okay, we should now outlaw airdrops entirely because people can easily fall for scams. I mean, people can also fall for scam cryptocurrencies that promise 100x returns. It doesn't mean that we should now be outlawing legitimate cryptocurrencies that do have potential to get those gains. So I think that as a concept, airdrops, I mean, potentially it's in the name, a reward mechanism. Maybe they should try and make it a bit more banal of a name, such that people can't easily associate it with free money, which allows people to fall for these scams. But I think that it's just a matter of people making sure that, verify everything you see online, right? If you don't just trust there's something that says, oh, this is the airdrop for the new Eigen, for instance, or whatever, some hot new cryptocurrency, or the MetaMask airdrop, or whatever, that doesn't exist yet. If it doesn't, then go and check it. Make sure you follow in the projects, make sure you triple checking, and make sure that most projects will actually announce months before that there's going to be some sort of an airdrop, that there's going to be some sort of mechanism, and or some sort of an incentive mechanism of some description. And don't just trust that automatically right now there's just been this massive airdrop that's happened. You need to connect your wallet to gain access to it, because that is most likely to be a scam. Remember, guys, the number one rule on the internet or in life in general, especially as it relates to free money, is if it sounds too good to be true, it pretty likely is. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Okay, on to the next question. And this is from Josh Rolfie, and he asks, still bullish on Injective, INJ. Yeah, the Injective Ninjas. I wonder where they got that name from. I'd love to know. I mean, I think that, is it the INJ in it? Ninja? Curious. Maybe if you know, you can let me know in the comments, because I would love to know where that name came from. But yeah, I mean, so does it still have potential? Look, I mean, Injective and INJ has been one of the best performers of the last year. And I think, in fact, it was the best performer from a long shot. It was actually one of the first coins to breach through its previous bull market all-time high. So that's crazy. And it's still trading quite some way above its previous all-time high. So this naturally, makes many question, is it time to start considering taking some profit? Does it still have that potential? And I will be honest, obviously, full disclosure, I obviously also hold Injective, and I've been a fan of the project for quite some time. And I've also asked that question. It's like, there's a lot of hot alt ones popping off right now. Has Injective had its rally? Should one consider taking a bit of profits? But then again, I look at what's happening within the Injective ecosystem, right? Like just a week ago, they had the Volan upgrade, which had many new features and functionality. I mean, it had the RWA module, integration module, which would allow for large financial institutions to integrate with the Injective network to issue RWAs. Then there was the expansion of the IBC, or inter-blockchain communication protocol, which would allow for other dApps within, or other projects within this Cosmos ecosystem to access liquidity on Injective, which obviously creates more demand for it. There was improvements in token burn mechanisms and a few other features and functionality. And I think that, that's a really big upgrade. And there's been a lot of token burns going on. Obviously, this obviously means there's less supply on the market, which is generally price positive, especially if we get into that deflationary part of the emissions. And then, of course, a lot of Injective is being staked. I think close to, if I'm not mistaken, like 49 million or so Injective INJ is being staked. So it's a lot of participation in the network. And this staking is taking place because people are excited for things that are building within Injective. And speaking about airdrops again, but these are potentially legit airdrops around, for instance, projects and dApps that are built in there. There's quite a few. Some of the most popular are like Helix, which is their proprietary trading or their perpetual trading DEX. There's another version of that, which is Mito. There's Hydra, which I think is for liquid staking, and then Dojo Swap. That's a cool name, actually, Dojo. Keeping with the ninja theme. Dojo Swap, which is an AMM, so automated market maker, different from the order books on Helix, etc. So there's a lot of potential exciting projects building on Injective, and I'm considering, well, instead of taking some profit, why don't I, get involved in the ecosystem, start staking, start allocating capital to these particular protocols, and stake my Injective. So right now, I'm considering between the two. Maybe I'll sell a little bit, and I will then stake a lot of it as well to potentially partake in the ecosystem, in an exciting ecosystem, support the project, but obviously also potentially gain some airdrop potential in the Injective ecosystem. So I'll obviously keep you guys in the loop. If you Coin Bureau Club subscribers, I'll let you guys know as well about what I intend to do with my Injective as the time comes. Okay, on to the final question, and it's Augustin again. He had a lot of questions for us this week. Augustin asks, we need a video of a CB team playing Padel. Yeah, man, we definitely do. You see, if you've been a regular watcher on the Q&As, you will have known, and if you've seen some of the pictures, you will have seen that there is a very, very competitive Coin Bureau Padel rivalry going on here between me and Guy. Last weekend, I regained the title. I maintained my title. Guy really wants to, come back at it. There's been talk around the office around potentially launching a poly market, an on-chain betting market where you can bet on between me and Guy winning. And, this is going to become incredibly competitive as we go on. And with regards to a video, we definitely are thinking of live streaming it. Going to get the whole team around and live stream this event. In fact, I'll give you a little bit of a preview. Next weekend, the Coin Bureau team is going to a relatively exotic location for a team building exercise and some shoots. And we're going to I've already tried to secure a paddle court at this event, this venue. And we're going to try and see if we can get it recorded. Maybe live streamed. So you can bet on Guy or me live on the new market we've created. But I will say, don't bet against me because you're going to lose. Okay, cool. So those are all the questions for today, guys. Thank you once again for submitting all of them. And like I say, if we didn't manage to get to yours, we'll try and come back to them next week. We always try to come back to these. So you'll see sometimes we answer some from the previous week and try to answer all your questions. So once again, if you really like this video, please like and subscribe. And hopefully next week we can be joined with either Guy or Jessica again. But yeah, have an amazing weekend. Hopefully I can be wearing green pants next week with the green markets. So see you then. Cheers.